Hi everyone. What is hope? So, hope is a state of being where you hope for a better day, you hope for a positive outcome, you hope something will work. I imagine when scientists are working on trying to develop something new, they hope they can figure it out. They hope whatever they've put hours and hours of their time into works. It is the dream of the inventor to hope that what they invent is worthwhile, that it functions, that it serves the purpose that they're trying to, serves the need that they're trying to fulfill. I imagine when the teacher is doing an experiment, there's a part of him that knows what the outcome should be, but they hope that a variable isn't slightly off and that the outcome is actually as it should be. So hope is, it's almost a human condition. Would you bother studying in a field if you didn't hope that you could be practicing in that field? That there is no hope that you could be the best psychologist, psychiatrist, counselor, scientist, mathematician, that you could formulate something, hello my boy, you could formulate something that nobody else can. You know, in rescue, we rescue babies in the hope that we can find them a forever home. And ultimately, a lot of people in rescue end up with a lot of animals because there was no home. I don't have 11 cats by design. I have 11 cats because, well, there wasn't a home for them. And I couldn't see myself putting those animals into a shelter. So 2 weeks ago, I rescued 3 kittens. And that first night, I hoped I could keep them alive for long enough to get them to a foster mummy who could raise them to an age where we would hopefully be able to find them homes. So I kept them alive that night. And I took them to the vet the next morning, and I found a foster mummy to take care of them. And a week later, when the kittens were 3 weeks old, they were ill, and I took them to the vet, and there was no hope. So I was forced to make the call to end their very short lives, because an overfull system of rescue and hoping for the survival of 3 kittens who were ill, there was no hope. So I made the very difficult call to kill them. Apparently it's called putting them to sleep. Euthanasia. All sounds so nice. It isn't. It isn't. It's playing God. But then in reality, they had 1 week of warmth and full tummies. 1 week of love and care. Because where I rescued them from, they were facing a certain death. So I gave them a week. Like God, I suppose. You know, that divine being who makes these decisions for us, who has this divine plan. Your life is mapped out for you. And then you discover there is no hope. There is no hope because it makes no difference. It makes no difference. So, every night when I go to bed, I hope I don't wake up in the morning. And unfortunately, the way my life works, and the way it has worked, is every time I've hoped for something, it doesn't work out the way I planned. So maybe tonight, I won't hope that I don't wake up. And maybe I won't wake up. Maybe the divine cosmic plan is to say, stop the hope. Stop wanting. Because if you don't expect anything, you can't be destroyed. If you don't want anything better, it can't be taken away from you. If you don't work for something, if you've never had it, you don't know what you've lost. If you don't have a dream, it can't be shattered. So yes, a part of my soul has died. Because I don't hope anymore. I don't understand the point. I find the world vacuous. All these people running around trying to make a difference. Trying to have the newest car, the newest phone, the newest laptop or device or whatever. To be the best at artificial intelligence. The biggest computer, the biggest house. There's no point to any of it. Because when you die, you may be remembered. Will you be remembered for who you were? Or will you be remembered for what you had? Well, if I look back at the most memorable people that I can think of in history, I'm not a historian. Those people are the ones who invariably had nothing. They used their brains. They used their minds. They contributed to the understanding and the depth of life. They, people who are remembered for gadgets and devices are soon replaced and forgotten. But those who have studied the human condition, who have proposed theories on how people survive, how people assimilate life, those people are remembered. They're quoted regularly. The great statesmen, Were they wealthy? Some of them, yes. But they weren't remembered for their wealth. They weren't revered for their wealth. They weren't revered because they lived in an enormous castle or palace. They were remembered because of their contribution to society, not their contribution to their family lineage. In other words, the inheritance portion. And you want to know the true measure of a family. I worked for a sole proprietor who commits suicide. He was a very troubled man. He was divorced. He had 2 young children. He was a multimillionaire. And he committed suicide because his girlfriend at that time refused to toe the line, I suppose. And we were asked as employees by the estate and the ex-wife not to say anything to the children. And there were 2 young boys. I can't remember their ages. They were probably 6 and 7, 7 and 8, something like that. And we had cause to go into his property, his residence, after the family had been into the residence to get keepsakes of their late father. And what we found was that the keepsakes that were taken were only the valuable electronic devices. His photograph had been crushed into the floor by his children, his heirs. Will they remember him for who he was? No. Will they remember him for his contribution to society? No. They will remember him for what they got out of him from a financial perspective. And very often, that is what families do. When my father was dying of cancer, my oldest brother, who is now dead, didn't want to waste money to come and visit the old man until he knew the old man was nearly dead. And he gave the eulogy at the memorial service and waxed lyrical and cried great big tears. And I looked at him and thought, to you, spending 1,000 rand, which is less than $200 for those who live in America, was too much to see your father before he died. And yet, here you are standing in front of people, waxing lyrical about how much you loved him. And after that memorial service, the fight started about who got what. The irony of it was that everything went to our mother because she was the sole heir. But there was an argument and a fight about who got what. When my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer, there was an enormous fight about who got what. I excluded myself from that fight because I never wanted anything. I never wanted anything. It's all just stuff. It's stuff. And what can you do with stuff? Hang it on your wall. So when my father asked me, what do I want? I said to him, the grandfather clock. And he listed other valuable items that they had. And I said, I don't want it. And the only reason I wanted the grandfather clock was because it reminded me of home. It reminded me of what I thought was love. I have that grandfather clock. It doesn't work. I don't want to hear it chime. Because I found out afterwards that what I remembered as love wasn't love. What I thought of as a family was not a family. And the only reason I have not destroyed that clock is because my niece wants it. So I'm waiting for her to say to me, I'll come and fetch it. Because people don't have depth. People don't value people. People don't value understanding, knowledge, experience, wisdom, kindness, love. People don't value it. They value a new car, a new house, a fancy dining room suite, a leather lounge suite. They value the latest and greatest gadget. They find joy from material objects that they've placed value into. When my ex went overseas, he wanted to bring gifts for me. And I said to him, I don't want anything. I want you. I don't want anything else. I didn't understand that his way of showing me love was to give me stuff. He didn't understand that the way I need to feel love is to feel love. It's not stuff. Stuff is pretty. Stuff has a utility value. If I have a couch, I will sit on it. If I have a plate, I will eat off it. I don't need to have a plate that is gold-plated or gold-leafed and fancy and worth $50 million. I want a plate that, if I accidentally chip it when I'm washing it, I don't feel as if I've damaged something valuable. I want to be able to use what I have. I want to be able to feel love, not receive love in the form of stuff. And the entire society, everything is consumerism. Everything is consumerism. And yet, people are desperately trying to survive. And while they're trying to survive, they are being consumers. Because it's not good enough to have a regular slice of bread. It needs to be a fancy slice of bread from a fancy place. If you want to take me on a date, please don't take me to a fancy restaurant. Take me on a picnic, on a beautiful sunny day on a blanket, out in the earth, in the environment where I can watch the birds and the bees and the butterflies, hopefully a bunny or two. I don't want to sit inside a building with canned music and fancy plates and fancy knives and forks where I have to follow some etiquette on which knife and which fork I'm allowed to use for which course, where I pay 5 times the amount for a slice of bread that is a quarter of the size of a regular slice of bread, or because I've gone to an upmarket establishment and they dropped a few beads of oil onto the bread and therefore it's now special. It's not special. It's a tiny little piece of bread that's overpriced. Yes, there are places where you have an experience of cuisine that is out of this world, and you value that. You value the cuisine, you value the intricate method that the chef concocted, whatever it is that he concocted, or her. But that's not a date. Going somewhere to spend time with somebody, that is the value. Making a memory with somebody, that is value. If I think back to the happiest times of my life, I don't think back to when I bought a brand new book or a brand new dress or a brand new whatever. When I go back in my memories, my happiest times were spent with people I loved and valued, and who loved and valued me. So I'm living in a society where value is skewed. It's not valuable to have connection with people. It's not valuable to share experiences with people. It's valuable to have the latest and greatest vehicle on the market. It's valuable to have a vehicle that reaches top speeds that most roads can't cater for, unless you happen to live in Germany with the Autobahn. Or you race on a racetrack. But people find value in material. So the hope for me is gone. I don't hope to meet someone who will value life, people, experiences, love, the way I value those things. Because people value stuff, physical objects, material things. People strive to be bigger and better than somebody else. I don't want to be bigger and better than somebody else. I want to be me. I don't want to be compared against somebody else. I want to be me. I don't hope to be something that I'm not. Well, except maybe happy, which I'm not, and I've given up hoping for. So what is hope? And what happens when you lose hope? What happens when you lose hope? Well, a part of you dies. A part of you discovers that there is nothing. That any dream that you may have had is about as likely as winning a lottery jackpot. And the odds are forever stacked in your, well, not in your favor. So what is hope? I went through a long phase where I hoped for the best and expected the worst. We do this over New Year's Eve. You know, every New Year's Eve, when we were younger, we would go to an event, and everybody looks forward to New Year's Eve. It's supposed to be this big event ringing in the new year, all supposed to be fantastic and marvelous. Invariably, New Year's Eve, either everybody misses the ringing in of the new year, or you end up being covered in sticky, sweet champagne because somebody sprays it all over the show. And with luck, you don't end up being vomited on. Most New Year's Eve parties aren't fun. Most New Year's Eve parties are, the expectation is so high that the event falls sadly short of what it can be. If you don't hope for a good evening and you have one, you're pleasantly surprised. So I went through a long phase where I hoped for the best and expected the worst. And sometimes I'm pleasantly surprised. Most of the time, I realized that the hope was futile. Because my value system is different to other people's value system. I value the life of the person. I don't value what the person can give me. I don't value the material objects. I value time. I value memories. I value what other people see as an inconvenience. And sadly, when all is said and done, and they look back, they realize that what they should have valued were the people and the memories, the love and the kindness, not what they could get, not the stuff. And don't get me wrong, the stuff is nice. I would much rather be depressed in a Ferrari Testarossa than a clapped out old VW Beetle. I would much rather be sleeping comfortably in a nice big house with central heating and all the mod cons than a shack in the back and beyond, stuck in between warehousing. But at the end of the day, I have a roof over my head. I have blankets to keep me warm. And no matter where I'm sleeping, whether it be in a giant mansion or in a shack at the back and beyond, I'm still sleeping alone. So it's neither here nor there. It's neither here nor there. There is no value to where I sleep. The value is who I get to share the space with, who I get to share the memories with. So what is hope? And what do you do once you've lost hope? What do you do when you can't see any point anymore? Where you can't see where you can't hope for a better day because you're so used to having your hopes dashed that hope is basically setting you up for failure. So, what do you do once you've lost hope? Where do you go? Where do you go to from here? One would think the only place is up. But that would be a silly hope. So what is hope? And what happens when you stop hoping? What happens when you give up hope? Have a great day now.